good evening, and welcome to the very first episode of my Precinct show. This is called KU Bark. KU Bark, incidentally, is or was a code name for CIA headquarters in Langley, Virginia. We will not be talking about the CIA tonight, except perhaps marginally, unless someone wants to bring it up. And I am informed that we are lagging a little bit. It seems to happen each time I start streaming. I had hoped that perhaps by starting earlier it wouldn't be quite as bad, but it usually sorts itself out after a few minutes. My connection is good. I'm not really sure what the problem is. I've adjusted my frames per second and so forth, since it's just me sitting here talking, or in some cases, most cases, I have guests in here with me talking as well. So hopefully we will have some people show up to take part in the stream, but otherwise I'm just going to begin talking about some recent news. Now, so in the news recently, we have something that's near and dear to my heart, is the Green Party of the United States. Turns out there is a move on the part of the Montana Democratic Party, or some of its members, to try to get the Green Party off the ballot. Last year, a Montana Democratic Party spokesman told the media, quote, "The Montana Democratic Party welcomes all voices to participate in the democratic process, unlike the Montana GOP, which has a record of trying to remove third-party candidates from the ballot," end quote. So, when the Montana Green Party turned in enough signatures to qualify for the ballot this year, what do you think the Democrats did? It may surprise you, but the Democrats' actions were the exact opposite of their words. They immediately launched in all-out attack, bringing in big-money international corporate law firm Perkins & Coie in an effort to throw the Greens off the ballot. So that's quite interesting there. I will be including a link in the video description, and there is a sort of a donation request from the Montana Greens if anyone is interested in helping them win their ballot access fight. They need to raise $2,000. I'm not sure how far along they are at the moment, but this came out yesterday evening. No, let's see. Yes, the 6th. Yeah, it came out the 6th, and the information comes from Dr. Stein, Jill Stein. So that's a little bit of interest. And it just shows the usual dirty tricks that happen in American politics. Yep, they are turning the frogs gay. So that actually is one of the stories we'll be talking about tonight. Not turning frogs gay, but Alex Jones being permanently banned from Twitter. Now, it's not right. The next thing is actually in India. The Supreme Court, or their version of the Supreme Court, unanimously ruled to decriminalize homosexual sex in a landmark judgment for gay rights. It was a colonial-era law which had criminalized homosexuality, essentially. And a 5-judge bench at the country's highest court ruled that a 160-year-old law banning sex, quote, against the order of nature, end quote, amounted to discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation and was unconstitutional. So, as you might expect, LGBT people in India have been elated and been celebrating. They've been having all-night parties in nightclubs in major cities, people marching, carrying giant rainbow flags, and so forth and so on. So, good for them that they are able to do what, people ought to be free to do, without having to worry about being arrested and so forth. Now, the big story, I guess, this week, although I'm not really sure if you want to consider it news, because it is you know, I mean, it's kind of one of those celebrity things. But it is sort of news, at least. And that story is the Nike ad featuring Colin Kaepernick. So, a lot of people are, of course, upset. There have been people burning their Nikes. One individual, at least one, set them on fire while he was still wearing them, and as you might expect, it wasn't a very pleasant experience for him. Another fellow actually burned his house down while he was burning his Nikes. So that's quite interesting, yes. Now, Tim Black talked about that yesterday evening on his stream. Let's see. But what I wanted to point out, a lot of people are unaware of this, apparently. First of all, until 2009, the national anthem would play before the football game occurred, and it would be after the anthem that the football players from the two teams would come out and take the field. Since 2009, the players have been present on the field, or on the sidelines or whatever, and they have been expected to stand up and put their hand over their heart and do the usual patriotic thing. It turns out that the reason that happened was because the Department of Defense paid the NFL a rather large sum of money in order to promote this kind of patriotic ceremony in an attempt to encourage more people to join the United States all-volunteer military, because, well, we're in 7 different military actions at the moment, and in 2009 we were in 2 in Iraq and Afghanistan. So that's, I mean, it's not something that's been going on forever. It's a totally new thing. A lot of people are like, you shouldn't make this political. Whenever Colin Kaepernick started taking a knee in protest against police brutality, not against the flag, not against veterans or anything of the sort, but to protest police brutality. So a lot of people got their panties in a bunch, basically, or as they say across the pond, they got their knickers in a twist, and became rather outraged about it. Thought that he was protesting the flag itself, or the anthem, or being anti-American. Since Donald Trump became president, he seems to have taken it as some kind of personal insult. But in fact, in the 49ers' final preseason game in 2016, backup quarterback Colin Kaepernick decided to kneel for the national anthem instead of taking a seat on the bench. It turns out it was former Seattle Seahawks player and Green Beret veteran Nate Boyer who talked Kaepernick into making the change. Boyer wrote an open letter to Kaepernick in that season, 2016, and it caused the two to meet up and discuss America and honoring the anthem. So, Boyer says, quote, "We sort of came to a middle ground where he would take a knee alongside his teammates. Soldiers take a knee in front of a fallen brother's grave, to show respect. When we're on a patrol, and we go into a security halt, we take a knee and we pull security," end quote. So, Boyer said that Kaepernick was very receptive to that idea, and of course, as I think most of you know, he did in fact start taking a knee, and that was his form of protest against police brutality. And it's a rather calm and unobtrusive, not very, how you would say, disruptive sort of protest. I mean, it's not like he was setting cars on fire or beating the hell out of trash cans or smashing windows or, roaming around, doing crazy things like, flying a Nazi flag or saying "Hail Trump" or nothing particularly disruptive about just taking a knee instead of standing and putting your hand over your heart. And as I've just pointed out, the idea was given to him by a former Green Beret and a Seattle Seahawks football player. member of the Seattle Seahawks team. So it seems a bit unusual that everyone has their panties in a bunch over this particular thing, in my opinion. But you know, there are outrage mongers on all sides of the aisle these days. People seem to get upset over things that are not really all that outrageous, basically. There's that, and then we move on to talk about a new poll by Reuters/Ipsos found that nearly 85% of Democrats and a surprising 52% of Republicans support Medicare for all. They did not poll independents, a larger group than either major party, but other polls have found majority support among independents as well. This indicates that the attempt to get what is known as National Improved Medicare for all is gaining greater support, and even among Republicans, 52%. So that's pretty interesting, I think. Let's see. So let's go ahead and move on to the second big story, which is Twitter has permanently banned Alex Jones and InfoWars, and they have cited abuse as the reason for doing so. It was a day after the Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey testified before Congress about alleged bias against conservatives on the Twitter platform. And they said he won't be able to create a new account on Twitter or take over any existing ones. Said it would continue to monitor reports about other accounts potentially associated with Jones or InfoWars, and will take action if it finds any attempts to circumvent the ban. Says that the Twitter said that Jones posted a video on Wednesday that violates the company's policy against abusive behavior. That video showed Jones berating CNN journalist Oliver Darcy for some 10 minutes in between two congressional hearings on social media. Dorsey testified at both hearings but did not appear to witness the confrontation. If this is the video that I saw a clip of, he was basically heckling as Marco Rubio was talking to the reporter, and it wasn't like you could actually hear what he was saying. The mic was obviously not on him. He didn't have a mic in his hand, and they were, it was the reporter and Marco Rubio talking, and those were the voices you could hear. You could hear Alex Jones if you actually tried, but it was a bit difficult to make out what he was saying over the other two voices. It's not like it's any kind of new activity on his part, and as some of you may know, a number of people have spoken out against this attempt on the part of large corporations with these more or less what we could call monopolies on these social media platforms. The idea that we should allow a corporate CEO to make decisions for us about what is and is not fake news, what is and is not propaganda, and so forth. We've heard from, of course, Jones's own supporters. They've protested this, but surprisingly, for some people at least, there has also been protest from voices, progressive leftist voices, such as Jimmy Dore, Tim Black, Nico House. Let's see, I think Jordan Sheridan said something about it as well. I've talked about it. Abby Martin has talked about it. A number of us on the left have said this ain't cool, because these are essentially what have become our modern public square. There is no real viable alternative to YouTube. There is no real viable alternative to Twitter or Facebook. And so when you shut someone down on those platforms, what are they going to do? Where are they going to go? There's no real other option. You can't just go and, yeah, sure, there's Gab, and there are a few other video services like, I don't remember which one of these is gone now, but there was VidMe and Vimeo, and one of them is no more. Let's see. I know that one of them got shut down or went out of business or whatever. So I don't know which one of them it was. I've forgotten which one of those it was. And then you also have things like Twitch, but Twitch is, you know, pretty much just a stream service. I don't know that you can actually upload videos to Twitch, and I do know that they don't keep them forever. I mean, they have a certain amount of time or a certain number of videos that they will save before they start clearing out their cache. You've got Minds, but I believe that you can only upload a video there or do a stream that's 30 minutes long or shorter, and nothing longer than that. So that's not really a viable alternative to YouTube. I mean, I've been in streams that have gone for over 7 hours. None of my streams, but I have been in some streams that have gone for over 7 hours. One on Netscape's channel where we debated with an anti-gamergator. Let's see, there have been maybe a couple on Robin's channel, Robin Gething, the Open House. He does his streams every Saturday afternoon by US standards. I'm not really sure what time it is in the UK when he starts. I guess Silver Fox in the audience there could tell you or give you a better idea. Let's see. Minds isn't really a suitable alternative. Then you have BitChute, which is it is not quite. I mean, from what I understand, it's a very decentralized platform, and the more people that are watching, the less buffering you experience or something. I'm not exactly sure how that works. And then there are a few other smaller video and streaming platforms that none of these have the same audience as YouTube does. And I mean, none of them have the massive #1 search engine of Google behind them. You know, Google and YouTube are both owned by the same parent corporation, Alphabet, which used to just be called Google. But they have now decided that they're going to have a, you know, kind of a, I don't know what you call it, an over company or whatever to manage all of their various holdings, including YouTube and Google, the search engine, and Gmail and Google Plus, and I don't even know what all they have. They have all kinds of stuff. Obviously, none of these other platforms is able to compete with that. Twitch would probably be the closest because it is owned by Amazon. And, you know, Amazon is a rather large and powerful company with quite a lot of money, or at least their CEO has quite a lot of money. So, you know, there's not really any alternative to YouTube that is viable and that can compete, at least not at this point in time. Now, there have been attempts to come up with an alternative to Facebook in the form of a social media platform known as Just Inform. That was started by Tim Black, Nico House, and someone else. I forget her name. But she's not a very public face. Those two guys are very, I mean, they both do YouTube streams and videos, and Nico is the founder of the MCSC network. Tim Black is probably pretty well known to a lot of you. He does Coffee with Tim Black and assorted other things where he does talk about politics and the like on his YouTube channel. So, I mean, Twitter, like, you know, like I mentioned Gab, there is Gab that's sort of like Twitter, but it's again, doesn't have nearly the number of people on it, as Twitter does, and, it does seem to have a certain flavor to it, if you will. So, I mean, there are very, very few progressive leftists there. And when I say progressive, I mean modern progressive. I don't mean SJW, even though some of them call themselves progressives as well. yeah, so there's not really any alternative, and I mean, it's not like this has hurt Alex Jones a lot. From what I understand, his app is now like the #1 or #2 app on available out there. So I mean, it just brought him a lot of publicity, but at the same time, this kind of censorship is not going to stop with a person like Alex Jones. I mean, they've already been censoring other anti-establishment voices, if you will, a lot of anti-war voices. Facebook did shut down the Occupy London page for a while. They shut down Telesur English for a while. I'm not sure who on Twitter. I guess Facebook banned over 600 accounts a couple of weeks ago at the behest of the Atlantic Council. Now, for those of you who don't know, the Atlantic Council has on its board such personalities as Henry Kissinger and a couple of former directors of the Central Intelligence Agency, a former director of the NSA, corporations like Lockheed Martin and Raytheon, which are both part of the military-industrial complex. Obviously, they might have some vested interest in shutting down anti-war voices. So it's kind of screwy right now, and a lot of people are talking about treating these platforms as if they were sort of like the public airwaves. So bringing some kind of regulation from the government in to make sure that people have a voice and are not unjustly banned just for having a different opinion or whatever. Now, of course, the excuse used in the case of Alex Jones is that he was violating the the Twitter policy against what did they call it again? Abusive behavior. Yes, abusive behavior. I'm guessing that he posted this video on Twitter, which would be the only justification I could see possible for them to do that. Because if he just, if he just did this somewhere else and not on Twitter, and he posted the videos somewhere else, then obviously it would be one of those examples of, we're watching you even when you're not on our platform. And I think they've said they're going to do that. I think Facebook has said they're going to do that too. And I don't, I mean, that's kind of overstepping their bounds, don't you think? Yeah, I call them regressive, Lese Maxwell. I generally refer to the people who are called social justice warriors as regressive outrage mongers, because they're not progressive. A lot of the things that they're trying to do would be to undo progress, which has been accomplished over the past 60 years. So they wouldn't be progressing, but regressing. So there's that. I mean, this focus on identity politics, a lot of people think that these people are leftist, but identity politics is divisive, and when it comes to leftist goals, you need solidarity, which is kind of the opposite of divisiveness, right? It's where everybody comes together. I mean, I've talked about this with Nick. The Occupy movement was, at first, we are the 99%. And they were standing together regardless of, any superficial differences like skin color or, chromosomal sex or gender identity or sexual orientation or ethnicity, man, woman, boy, girl, gay, straight, bi, it didn't matter. They were all the 99%. And then about 2012, you had these people who came in and started dividing the movement up into little rival camps of identities, squabbling with each other over scraps from the table of the 1%. So that was pretty much the end of any kind of hope of effectiveness on the part of the Occupy movement. I mean, they're still around. The Occupy movement is still around. The Occupy.com is still around. Nick has written some articles for Occupy.com in the past. Some of you may have remembered reading an article he did, I guess it was toward the end of 2016 or the early part of 2000. Yeah, it was early 2017. He did an article called A Letter to the Left, Antifa is Not Your Friend, and that was published in Occupy.com. I mean, so Occupy is still around, but It's not what it was, you know, when it first got started. And I blame those regressive outrage mongers with their identity politics. Because you need to be able to stand together in solidarity in order to actualize any leftist goals. So let's see now. So what we got some other news to look at here. Let's see. We talked about the Montana situation. We talked about the Medicare for all. We talked about legalizing or decriminalizing homosexuality in India. We talked about Colin Kaepernick. We have just now talked about Alex Jones being permanently banned from Twitter. So let's talk about now, rest in peace, Burt Reynolds passed away, I believe it was yesterday. He was 82 years old. A lot of women my age and a little older would have regarded Burt Reynolds as a sex symbol. I mean, he was quite attractive in his younger years, and he didn't look too bad. He didn't look too bad as he started turning, you know, gray. But yeah, he did pass away. I recall a movie that he did back in the 60s with Raquel Welch and I believe Jim Brown, called 100 Rifles. It was an interesting movie set in Mexico. And there was a sort of Yaqui, Native American nation. The Yaqui wanted to have a revolution against the Spanish occupiers. There was a German fellow there, and it may have been Mexican instead of Spanish at that point in time, I'm not sure, because the Mexicans did overthrow, or did throw off the Spanish yoke and become independent about 10 years before the Texas Revolution. So that would have been 1826 or so, because the Texas Revolution was in 1836. And that's when the Texans won their independence from Mexico. And for about 10 years, they were an independent nation of their own, also known as the Lone Star Republic, the Republic of Texas. But this was a good movie. I thought it was a very good movie anyway. I remember watching it as a very young child, and I've watched it off and on ever since then. Every time it has come on television, and I've noticed that it was on. It was a good movie. But anyway, yeah, Burt is not with us anymore, so, you know, press F to pay respects to Burt Reynolds, and may he rest in peace. So we'll have a moment of silence while I try to figure out what else I'm doing. Yeah, it says that my video output is low, which is not surprising because there isn't really any video going on here. It's just a still image of the CIA headquarters in Langley, and then my little avatar sitting over here, occasionally showing a green ring around it. So I'm not really sure what I can do about that. I've lowered the FPS as much as I was advised to. So I should be doing okay. My connection seems to be, you know, steady and secure at 3 bars 4G LTE. Like I said, Friday evenings are always an interesting time to stream for me. It seems like a lot of other YouTubers who stream on Friday evenings have a similar thing. I know that there's a guy in my Discord, Bobby, who one evening was hopping around to various streams on Friday, and he said it was happening to everyone. Everyone was having the same issue going on, and it seems to hit about this time and go till about 7:30 Central Time, maybe 8 Central Time, and then things usually straighten out. So, I mean, it's 7 in Central Time right now. So, but I don't know if it's just the time and everybody is trying to stream at once, and the YouTube tube is getting a bit congested with people doing stuff, or what. But it usually does sort itself out after about 30 minutes or so of my streams. But now I've moved my stream back a little earlier to accommodate Nick and Jeff, who decided they wanted to take essentially my spot. But that's alright. Let's see. So the next item on the news for me tonight is, or this evening, this afternoon, whatever it is, the nation of Spain has canceled weapons sales to Saudi Arabia over war crimes in Yemen. So as many of you know, there is an attack, a war being prosecuted against Yemen by the Saudi government, and the United States and the United Kingdom have been supplying weapons and ammunition to the Saudis during all this, and supposedly the United States has been providing some other kind of tactical support or strategic support or something. And there's been a lot of criticism of it. You don't hear a lot about it on the mainstream media. It's only been in the past month or so that the mainstream media actually started talking about it. There was one article late last year from, let me see, who was the, what was the outlet that did that? If I can recall, I know I posted it recently. It was maybe, no, it was the Chicago Tribune, actually, late last year, in November the 16th, 2017, the Chicago Tribune did an article pointing out that an estimated 130 children or more die every day in war-torn Yemen from extreme hunger and disease, and as of that date, the 16th of November 2017, 50,000 had died in 2017 alone. And of course, the war hasn't ended there. So, but yeah, the mainstream media doesn't generally talk about this. In fact, I think it might have been Chris Hayes on MSNBC was one of the first to actually talk about it this year, and that's been like maybe a month ago, and that was like the first time you would have heard about it on television news. But so now Spain has has also been supplying the Saudi government with weapons and the like. In 2015, the Spanish government sold the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia 400 bombs in exchange for $10.6 million, and in April it signed a much larger, nearly $2 billion deal for warships. However, this week, and this article was published on the 5th, which was just 2 days ago, this week the country's defense ministry announced it was canceling the 2015 deal and returning the funds it had already received. The Independent reported on Wednesday that last month Spain's defense ministry said it had never sold arms that could be used against the civilian population while condemning the killing of non-combatants in Yemen. It also said it was reviewing sales that had not yet been closed and could be involved in attacks on civilians. Now, I think probably a lot of you know that there was an attack rather recently in which a school bus was bombed by the Saudis, and I don't remember the exact total number of people killed, but if I recall correctly, over 30 children 30 children died and several adults in that in that attack. The Saudis have also bombed wedding parties, funerals, hospitals, and assorted other, obviously, civilian targets. Now, I don't know if it's still taught in American military circles, but I was in ROTC briefly when I was in university, and we did have a module called American Military Ethics, and one of the things we were taught was, and I quote, a civilian target is an impermissible target, end quote. Now, of course, in 1945, the United States bombed Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which were civilian population centers. So, I mean, it's obvious that our military has not always lived up to that ideal. Certainly, we have also in our history things like the Lai Massacre in Vietnam, where a group of American soldiers went into a village where there were old men and children and women, and yeah, they did a lot of inappropriate things there, including killing most of them. Had it not been for a chopper pilot by the name of Thompson, no one would probably have ever known about it. But another thing that we were taught in that module on military ethics was that we should have intestinal fortitude, and the way that was defined to us by the captain who was teaching the course, or that module at least, was that we should have the intestinal fortitude, having the guts enough to disobey an unjust order and to report it up the chain of command. So, yeah. But yeah, so the situation in Yemen is a humanitarian crisis. People are starving to death. There's lack of clean water, a lot of cholera, and who knows what else. And finally, the last item I have to talk about in the news, so I was really hoping someone else would hop in here with me, and you know, we could have a conversation or the like, or I can just talk with those of you in the live chat outside there. You know, there is a little bit of delay between what I say and what you hear, so it may, you know, be a little slow. But the last item I have to talk about is U.S. lawyers claim to have, quote, explosive, end quote, documents about Monsanto's activity in Europe. Bayer, the German company Bayer, owns the agrochemical giant Monsanto. Now, Monsanto was bought by Bayer last year, I think. Monsanto has recently been ordered to pay a groundskeeper $289 million in damages over an alleged link between cancer and Roundup, which is one of their, I guess a weed killer or a pesticide. I'm not really sure. That's made by Monsanto. They may be facing many more legal fights soon. Lawyers involved in the California lawsuit against the firm claim that they have revealing documents about Monsanto and its affairs in Europe. Robert Jr. Kennedy was a lawyer, a U.S. lawyer, was cited by Euronews as saying, quote, "What we have is the tip of the iceberg, and in fact, we have documents now in our possession, several hundreds of documents that have not been declassified, and some of those are explosive." He goes on to say, many of them are pertinent to what Monsanto did here in Europe, and that's just the beginning. The number of lawsuits against Monsanto has surged from 5,200 to 8,000 since the California court's $289 million verdict. In June, a San Francisco jury found Monsanto liable for a school groundskeeper's lymphoma that he said developed after years of using Roundup weed killer. Weed killer, okay, so yeah. It's an herbicide then. Experts say the case may cost Monsanto's new owner, Bayer, billions of dollars in damages in the coming years. Belgian politician and Green member of the European Parliament, Bart Reynolds, said they, quote, lawyers, they are fighting a fight for more democracy and for transparency, and to get a better insight into how big corporations such as Monsanto act and try to manipulate all the facts, end quote. So the European Union may reportedly withdraw the license for Roundup this year. The herbicide's registration was extended for 5 years until 2022 instead of the usual 15 years. Roundup's active ingredient glyphosate is the most popular weed killer in the United States. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency maintains glyphosate is not likely to be carcinogenic. The EPA labeled glyphosate a carcinogen in 1985, but reversed its position in 1991. The World Health Organization's Cancer Research Agency classified glyphosate as probably carcinogenic to humans in 2015. California has listed glyphosate in its Proposition 65 registry of chemicals known to cause cancer, and it has only been in the past 3 years that the United States government has actually done any kind of research into the effects of glyphosate in compounds. So apparently, according to to what I read in these findings, and so far they've only done one study that was started in 2015. It looks like glyphosate itself isn't that dangerous, but in combination with other things, such as it is in the product Roundup, it may be very carcinogenic. Now, I don't know. I'm no expert. I'm not a scientist. I'm a philosopher. But what I've read so far gives me pause. I wouldn't want to have it sprayed on my property, and I wouldn't use it on my own garden. You can do as you will, of course. So, anybody got any questions or comments about anything that I've talked about here this evening? Anybody? Anybody? Or maybe somebody might want to hop in and talk here live on YouTube with me. You can hop in. Don't have to have a camera, just need a mic and preferably earbuds or headphones or something so that there's no echo from your speakers into your mic. No questions? And nobody's jumping in. If you want to jump in, there is a channel in my Discord called the Antechamber, which is a voice channel. If you hop in there, I will pull you in to the actual streaming channel. I'll give you a few minutes for you to catch up to what I've said. How about the lovely Kotzen lady? Would you like to join me in here? Lese Maxwell? How do you pronounce your name anyway? I've never been sure. I've always looked at it as if it were a German name, Lese, but I don't think that's the way you say it. Devil King? Anybody? Gator? Silver Fox? Anybody else out there? I can't even tell if anybody's talking anymore. Lots of buffering. Yep. Well, I'm not seeing any buffering on my end. It does still tell me that video output is low. Can you guys even understand what I'm saying? Oh, I did just see some buffering on my end, but I haven't seen a lot of it recently. There was a little bit at the beginning of the stream for me, but I haven't seen any until just now. So anybody got any questions? Anybody want to hop in and talk with me for, like about 15 minutes, because we're going to be ending the stream here in about 15 minutes, or maybe sooner if there's nothing to talk about and no one wants to come in. And I'm very surprised that my usual European co-streamers didn't hop in. I mean, usually we have Union Aerospace, who's from Spain. We've had Lepres Che Quinvara recently, who's in Italy. I've had several. Oh, Sandre has talked about joining us occasionally. And he is, I believe, in the UK. I'm not entirely sure. He told me at one point, and I don't remember. But I don't even see him online at the moment, so nope. Yeah, he's not. He doesn't show us online. That doesn't mean he isn't. But yeah. Anybody got any questions or comments about any of the news that I talked about, or anybody would like to hop in? Don't really know. I mean, I could talk about some other news, certainly, because I watch a lot of videos, streams, and the like about news. I read a lot of articles. I hang out on Twitter and Facebook and Google Plus and so forth. I will point out that Allison of the Honey Badgers Brigade was and may still be trying to sell the comic that she did a few years ago. I did link it in my Discord on the evening of the 5th, I believe. I did buy both volumes. I mean, they haven't arrived yet, obviously. I just ordered them. But yeah, let's see, where did I don't know where I linked that. It's here somewhere. Oh, I know. It's in the channel for movies, television, and books, I believe. Yeah, Allison Tiemann, Xenospora. It says 0 days left and the project ends on the 5th of September, but there is still a button to support now. Buy Xenospora Volumes 1 and 2, or buy Volume 2, or buy Volume 1. This is, she said, in talking about it, she said, in 2007, my mother died of lung cancer. After her death is when I started writing Xenospora. We had a rocky relationship, and during her struggle with cancer, she took a lot of her resentment out on me. Her treatments had been exhausting and painful and hadn't led to any improvement. A couple weeks before the end, she decided to let go. I remember walking down to where we'd set up her bed, bracing myself for the inevitable torrent of complaints she had for me whenever I arrived. Instead, she smiled at me and opened her arms for a hug, telling me how glad she was to see me. I didn't realize till that moment that was all I ever wanted from her, and I'll never forget it. I've seen other people with terminal illnesses change in the same way. All of their petty grievances and angers and hatreds fall away, and they're left with their love for their friends and families, and gratitude for their time left with them. Seeing this, I wondered, why do we have to come face to face with the end to see what's really important? So I wrote a story to answer that question. And so this comic is Xenospora is her story that she's talking about. I'm going to include a link to all of these articles and maybe a couple other things into the video description, so if you check back later, you'll be able to find links to all of this, as well as link to Allison's Xenospora comic if you want to buy that. I mean, I'm gonna say that's probably a graphic novel. It looks a better, kind of quality than a comic book, and so yeah. Let me go ahead and stick a couple of descriptions. Hang on.
Alright, my love.
Hey, who's this?
It is I, the mighty Lese Maxwell.
Lese. Okay, cool. How are you?
Good. So your stream is buffed pretty hardcore, by the way. I've done the refresh thing and closed it and opened it back up again.
Well, I'm not really sure what's going on. I've been streaming on Friday evenings for months now, and I usually stream a little later than this, but I had to move, obviously. I do have a pretty good connection at the moment. It's about the best I get where I am. I've got 3 bars of 4G LTE. I've got both arrows, one up and one down. It looks pretty steady, and occasionally I'll get up to 4 bars, but very, very seldom. The connection is steady and stable. It doesn't seem to be fluctuating at all. There's no weather here that would be interfering. But I have noticed that Friday evenings early tend to be a little rough starting. And I usually would start about an hour and a half later than I did tonight. And the thing usually sorts itself out about 30 minutes, maybe 45 minutes into the show. So I'm not really sure. And I said earlier, there is a guy that comes in and watches sometimes, and he's a member of the Discord here, Bobby. He was, I guess it's been about a month or 2 ago, he told me he was going around watching various people's streams that evening, and everybody was experiencing the same kind of weirdness with YouTube. So it may be something on YouTube's end. It may just be that so many people stream on Friday evenings that the tube gets congested, so to speak, and it takes a while to sort itself out. I'm not really sure what the deal is, but I don't know of any way I could improve it on my end. I've lowered the frames per second to what was recommended to me. So I don't know.
I mean, to be honest, outside of like playing Quiplash, haven't got a clue about any of it.
So anything on your mind? What have you been up to recently?
Well, I mean, the fact that it's now at the other end of summer, so it's actually cool enough to sleep, which is always nice. Because, yeah, the weather that we had this year for Blighty is just super unnatural. Like, we had Spain-level weather. It's just like, what the hell's going on?
I see.
Yeah, we Brits, we don't do well in heat.
No, I'm sure you don't know. Yeah. I'm not a big fan of heat myself, and I grew up on the Gulf Coast of Texas. I had to get away from that.
Yeah, I mean, I could probably visit across the pond, but I don't think I could live there, man. It's just like, nah, I just spend the entire time melting.
Well, you might like it up around Oregon and Washington State. Pacific Northwest's climate is not that different from Scotland, Western Scotland.
Okay.
It's getting worse.
He says it's getting worse. I don't know. The temperatures he's telling me are bad. I'm like, God, I wish it was that cool here.
Yeah, well, I mean, as soon as it gets above 15 degrees, that's pretty much beach weather in this country. That's Celsius, of course.
And I don't speak metric, so I have no idea what that is.
I think if it goes above 55 Fahrenheit, it's pretty much beach weather.
Okay.
But, like, I mean, we were up in the ridiculously high 90s, which is just unheard of for the UK in general. So I think, geographically speaking, it's super unnatural to get that hot here. And, I mean, at one point, we were outstripping Spain. And, like, Spain's so hot that they have to sleep in the afternoon just to, you know, cope with the summer. But, yeah, we were actually outstripping them by several Celsius.
Wow.
At one point, we was up at the 32s, and they were like in the mid 20s. It's like, what's going on?
Yeah, that's crazy. I have,
Of
though,
course.
you know, we do get where I'm at the moment, and I'm here until I get this house cleaned up, cleaned out, repaired, and sold, so I can move back to the Pacific Northwest. Because I can't handle it where I'm at. It's rather unbearably warm here, too. But yeah, sometimes we have higher temperatures than southern Florida or southern Texas. But the thing is, it gets hotter, but it doesn't stay hot as long.
Right. Well, normally we spend like a month's worth of rain during the month of August, and then it gets a bit better in September this month, and then that's pretty much the summer done. But this year it was just like roasting hot every day, July, August, and so far. And I think it's rained twice. So what is going on with this country?
No, it's, you know, climate change, global warming. Uh-oh, I'm a Chinese agent now, right?
You're a Chinese agent?
No,
How did
everybody,
that happen?
I think, I guess I should say I'm a Russian agent. That's right, because everybody says,
Right.
yeah. I did
Double
recently
agent.
buy a new Ushenka, and I bought a little KGB cap badge to go on it, so that whenever I finally do go on camera for my streams or one of my videos, I'm going to wear that and make the video about the crazy Hillary supporters who accuse anyone who doesn't support Hillary of being some kind of Russian agent.
Only
Yeah.
if you do it in a Russian accent.
Well, I can start off by saying something like "Здравствуйте, товарищ. Как вы поживаете?"
Okay, that's way too sexy.
Well,
I love Russian. I think I don't speak it, but I could listen to it all day, every day.
well, I normally I don't really speak Russian. I knew someone when I was an undergraduate many years ago who was a Soviet studies major, and I say Soviet studies major ought to let you have a clue as to how many years ago it was. And I learned a little bit of Russian from her, just like to say hello, how are you, hi, how's it going, good, bad, not bad, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah, no, I mean, other than Nastrovia and Das Vidanya, that just blew my entire Russian vocabulary right there.
До свидания, до скорого видания means I'll see you later.
Oh no, placebo. I know that one. That's thank you, isn't it?
Спасибо.
Placebo. Okay.
Спасибо.
Oh, spas, as in space. Spasibo. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Ooh. What do you...
So, are you planning on doing any of the Saints trips or nah?
Saints trips? You mean the one to Germany?
Yeah, the one to Germany is this April, and then not next April, but the April after that sort of thing, we're doing a tour of the American South.
Of the American South?
Yes, we're going from New York down to New Orleans and then over to Austin, I believe.
Oh, well, no, I didn't know anything about that one. I have heard about the German one, and I would love to come to Germany again, but I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. Last time I was in Germany was when the country was still divided into East and West Germany.
Yeah, same here. Last time I was there was back in '86, and though the next year the wall did fall, but yeah, while I was there, it was still up and going strong.
I would love to go back now because there are places that I couldn't see then, right? You know, I couldn't go to East Germany and I couldn't go to East Berlin. So, I mean, it would be really cool to see those places now that I couldn't see then, but, you know, I do have to say that I like Switzerland a lot better than Germany. No offense, Katzen lady, but Switzerland is beautiful. People are very nice. They're very friendly, and it's just it's a totally different. I mean, going from Switzerland into France is like a culture shock, especially you go into if you look at the graffiti in Switzerland, it's all words and it's all political stuff or economic stuff, like don't come to this hotel because they'll suck your blood, you know, that kind of stuff. You know, they charge too much money or whatever. And the first thing I can recall seeing when we went into Paris was a graffito of a big penis and scrotum on the wall of a building.
Yeah. Well, believe it or not, I mean, the culture shock of France, if you go from south of Paris to the north of Paris, it's like chalk and cheese difference.
Certainly the south of France seemed a little more mellow than Paris in itself.
Yeah, a hell of a lot more mellow. Like, I mean, if you go like south of it, anywhere in like, you go to somewhere like Nantes or Biarritz and places like that, people are absolutely lovely. But you go to like Paris itself, or like you know, Boulogne or anywhere like that, or Calais, the people are the most horrific people you'll ever meet. It's so strange, especially if you're not French. Holy shit!
Oh yes, yeah. I remember trying to get someone in Paris to speak any language that I could understand. They would make this little sound like that, and then say no. And it's supposed to represent that they're spitting at you because you dared to ask them if they speak English, and don't ask them if they speak German. You'll get a lot worse then.
I mean, I remember. Well, I mean, when was I in Calais? It was back in '94. And I literally did the whole, you know, parlez-vous anglais sort of thing. And instead of saying, like, no, I don't sort of thing, they just looked at me as if I was the devil incarnate. I'm like, okay, never mind.
Yeah.
Well, that's their fault for being so French.
Yeah, they should learn German. They should really learn German. I keep saying the Germans should have taken the entire country in the Franco-Prussian War.
Probably. I mean, I'm not saying that they're all a bunch of cheese-eating surrender monkeys, but, you know, hashtag not all.
No, I mean, you know,
probably one.
I mean, in the south of France, like, say, from Dijon down south, down into the Occitan region and Languedoc, that Provençal, all of that area seems pretty friendly. Brittany seems nice, but right there around Paris is just... Oh my, and I mean, it may just be a cultural difference, but, you know, because there is this thing in America where you speak from changes, depending on your accent. So, yeah, like,
that's regional.
Right, so if you go, like, to New York City, the people speak right out of their teeth, basically, and it seems to people from other areas of the United States as if they're spitting their words, but they're not. That's just where they speak from. You'll notice this if you go to Germany. The further south you go, the deeper into their throats they talk. And I also noticed the beer gets stronger the further south you go, so that might have something to do with it, huh?
I mean, I actually lived in Germany for several years as a child, sort of thing. So mine is a kind of nostalgia beat for going, sort of thing. I mean, I loved living there. Most of it was lived on a base or in British quarters, and yeah, I mean, I desperately miss the food. I haven't had a good Jaeger Schnitzel in how long?
Oh, I love Jaeger Schnitzels.
30 years? No, 32 years.
Wow. I love Jaeger Schnitzel. It's the most amazing stuff.
I mean, Jaeger sauce is just to die for. I mean, I know how to make it myself, so I mean, I can have it if I want it, sort of thing. But it's just that it's not authentic, you know. A bit like you can't legitimately have a pint of Guinness unless you're in Dublin.
Well, it's definitely different in the United States because all the alcohol that gets imported here has to be pasteurized, and so a lot of it winds up tasting like it's burnt. I mean, especially with the German dark beers, they taste completely different in Germany from the way they taste here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the problem. I mean, stout in general just travels badly. It's part of the makeup of the drink, unfortunately. I mean, that's why they say if you want a pint of Guinness, you got to, you know, get it almost directly from St James's Gate, which is technically true. The difference is palpable. It really is. if you like that type of drink, which I do.
I'm not really much of a fan of stout. I used to like it, but it kind of goes right through me now. But I tell you what I do really like is Belhaven Scottish Ale.
Yeah, the old Belhaven's great. Oh, you should try a bit of Cornish Tribute if you can find it.
I have had this Innocent Gun Oak-aged beer. That's pretty tasty too. That comes from Edinburgh. Edinburgh, as the Scots say, and Dunedin, as the Gaels say.
Yeah.
So what else do you have there? There's some kind of a witch's brew, Pendle witch's brew. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think that's a Yorkshire beer.
That's kind of interesting and tasty.
Yeah, I mean, literally, you could go to every county in England and you could get a spectacular beer there. The ale kind of culture here is huge because, I mean, the pub is very much indicative to almost a way of life for the English, Irish, and the Scottish and the Welsh. Sort of thing. It's like if you're doing anything, what's the word I'm looking for? Opposite to private. Social, sort of thing. You'll do it in some pub or another, sort of thing. You know, oh, you're going down the pub? Yeah. That's literally like the go-to. It's like Friday night in any pub is going to be chock-a-block packed because it's the end of the week. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of us become.
Hello, Bar. Welcome to my stream. It's almost over. In fact, I was supposed to stop 6 minutes ago, but I don't mind going a little bit longer. I mean, wait, am I right? I don't know. What the hell? I said it was going to last an hour and 45 minutes, so what time did we start, actually?
Second?
We started at... Oh yeah, we're not. We can go for a little bit longer here. Yeah, I thought I'd already gone over my allotted, scheduled ending time, but no, I haven't. We've got a little bit longer we can go. That's great. So, I mean, I wanted to stop early enough that there was a little bit of time for people to, you know, go to the powder room or grab a drink or whatever before the Saints start their show. So, yeah, we can go a little bit longer. And I'm going to try to put everybody's name in the guests thing in the video description here. So, let's see. Lese. How'd you say it again?
Lese, yeah.
Okay, Lese Maxwell and my strangely named boyfriend, Lord Flappyhat, aka Lunar 5, which was the name he was using, and nobody knows who he is with Lord Flappyhat as his name. AKA Lives Boo Bear.
She's just doing this to torment me.
I am, in fact. He owns it well, though. I mean, someone asked him in here, I guess it was DDR Mog asked him, "Are you her Boo Bear?" And he said, "I am." So, yeah, he knows.